Welcome to the open part of the IPCC meeting. We have welcome DMS, Rebecca Lam, Ms. Ao Young, Monica Ao Young, CSP, CNIIB, and Anna Zhang. We have a new colleague, Priscilla Wu. This is DSG2, responsible for admin. Welcome. And we share every success in a new endeavor. There are 5 members who are otherwise engaged. Melissa Pang, and Lisa Chan, Mr. Liman Ban, and Randy Yu. Thank you. Item number 1, confirmation minutes of the last meeting. Unless members have any amendments, shall we take minutes as confirmed? Thank you. Next, we're talking about protection and support of vulnerable witnesses. And this is a police presentation on the item. Police representative, thank you. Chairman, from time to time, there are violent acts of sexual offences against children and vulnerable people and people who are mentally incapacitated. And the police are attaching a lot of importance to this, and we would protect the vulnerable witnesses. And the IPCC has been giving a lot of advice to us. So we have invited Superintendent Miki Wu, crime support of the crime wing, to talk about protection and support of vulnerable witnesses. I hand you over to Miki. Madam Chair, members, I'm really honored to be invited to this IPCC meeting. I hope that through today's meeting, we can brief members on initiatives on the protection and support of vulnerable witnesses. The police policy is implemented by the FCSV, which was established in the 1990s. We have been implementing measures to offer support to the vulnerable witnesses. Over the past 10 years, we have implemented a whole raft of measures to improve the measures. First of all, let me explain the vulnerable witnesses. This is a legal term. Now, in terms of age, in terms of mental conditions, we need to offer special treatment. Under Section 79C of the Criminal Procedures Ordinance, the vulnerable witnesses include children and also the mentally incapacitated persons. They can't really express themselves unless they are given assistance. They will not be able to testify. So in terms of investigation and court proceedings, we do have a whole raft of measures to render assistance. For sexual offense victims, it is regardless of the age and gender, and they would be traumatized as a result of the offense. We have taken whole serious measures to protect their well-being. There are a number of such unfortunate issues, like the CRH, the Children Residential Home, and also children were lured into a sexual offense, and women were forced into sexual intercourse under duress. Now, we are concerned about this. So the sexual offense victims and vulnerable witnesses would be worried about the proceedings, and they would like to expect some protection. Normally, there are 3 kinds of complaints. First is about the progress of investigation. The victims or the family members would think that the police are taking a long time to investigate. Second, a lack of support for the victims. And third, misunderstanding of the procedures. In the course of investigation and law enforcement, there may be misunderstanding generating these kind of perception. Now, for the sex offense and vulnerable witnesses, there are certain complexities in our investigation. There are a whole combination of factors that would make investigation difficult. Sometimes the perpetrators are people who the victims rely upon. They have faith in these people, and it is difficult for the victims to articulate the happenings. Since some are young and some have a particular mental condition, it's difficult for them to articulate the course of events. So for these cases, we need to have the DOJ's advice before we can instigate prosecution. So it will take a little bit longer for us to handle these cases. And as a result, some complainants are of the view that we're not quick enough with our investigation. Because of the complex nature of these cases, the victims do need support. So we do have a multidisciplinary team together with the DH and SWD and other departments and also some NGOs. We are taking a multi-pronged approach. We would investigate and render support. We need to protect the well-being of the victims. Second, we enhance the training of the personnel and also to enhance the sensitivity so that they would have the empathy.
The third is to strengthen publicity and education so that they can prevent such incidents from happening. And then through these three different channels, we hope that we can reduce the number of cases happen. First of all, about specialized investigation and support, I would like to emphasize that we have been using the general procedure and two additional arrangements. And targeting at the vulnerable weakness, we will do the video record and then interview with them. And then as experience, and we know that we need special techniques to do the interview. So all of the people who are conducting this interview will receive special training that will include police, SWD officers, and then psychologists. And then all these interviews will be conducted in a simulated family situation so that they could feel safe and then very comfortable to talk about the unhappy accident. And then on the other hand, we will also conduct special meetings with the different experts. If we need to bring this case to court, we will submit that video record as a kind of evidence, and they will substitute the witness to appear in person and then to repeat the process. And of course, we will also arrange giving witness through video, and they will be doing that in a separate room so that they do not have to meet the perpetrators. And then we will also arrange the companion so that we can take care of their mental situation. And for those sexual harassment victims, we have special arrangements like that. We arrange same-gender police officers to do the testimony and interview. On the other hand, we will also provide a one-stop service together with other special departments and the service institutions, like that we can do that in a hospital environment with the police interviews and other medical examination, etc. And then they will not need to go to different places to repeat the experience. And according to their intention, we will do referral. For the court, we will, depending on the situation, to see whether that we need to arrange the screen and fences to protect them being exposed to the perpetrator. And they will do the testimony behind the screen and then enter the court through a special entry point, so that in the process they will feel safe and at ease. Last year, we have established a sexual violence information website so that people will know more about the support and also the procedure. We heard that some NGOs respond that the new website has facilitated the assessment of information for the vulnerable victims, and then that will actually put them in the safer and more comfortable position. And you also help them and their family to have better assessments to the information. Well, in case, and then also after the incident of the children's residence and home, the public has put more the attention to the well-being of just small children. And we have implemented 2 additional measures. For instance, early this year, together with DOJ, we have established a new the special unit to protect the vulnerable victims, and the purpose is to speed up the whole procedure. And after this unit, the difference is that before we will do the investigation before we submit the case, but with the establishment of this special task force, we will actually intervene and then to collect evidence in the early stage. The children's residential home is a very good case. And in the very age of the case, we have been doing a lot of evidence collection process, and then this case is quite complicated. There are over 40 victims, and then at the end we have arrested like 30-some suspects, and then it just took like 5 months, and so this is very efficient, as I just mentioned. And we need to seek legal advice on every one of these cases. And then with this special force, we have speed up the whole investigation, and the complaint on the relevant situation has greatly decreased. The second measure actually started on July of 2022. We have established another support team. It's called Vulnerable Weakness Support Cadet, with over 700 members. They have received special training, and then we have regular exercise, and then different kinds of training and assessment, so that they have better skills and knowledge to perform their task. And for instance, they also work with against the child abuses and mother's choice and other harmony houses to induce the new measures we adopted, and also the relevant knowledge, so that the vulnerable victim groups will have a better understanding of the relevant law enforcement mechanisms. Another than the special team, we also put a lot of emphasis on the training of our staff. It applies both to vulnerable victims and also the sex violence victims. And starting from the time they join us and to the special training, we have been providing the appropriate and special training, so that people on different responsibility will know how to handle the situation. And in order to enhance our collaboration with stakeholders, we work together with the Social Welfare Department, the Health Department, and we also invite NGOs like the Rain Lily, etc., to organize the courses and to enhance our professional skills and also the empathy in handling relevant cases. Well, for the vulnerable weakness and the category of cases, we need to handle in a different manner. So we need actually to do more preventive education and publicity. So starting from 2021, we reorganize our resources with the support of relevant NGOs, and we implement a special plan is called Child Protection Plan that include one-stop website so that children, the parents can have access to the information more easily. And there are other activities include like a jumping contest last year, and there are also celebrities and then who have been invited to be the child protection ambassador last year. There are the publicity on the table. There is a QR code. It is directly connected to our one-stop website. The plan last year has resulted very positively, and a total of over 60,000 people have participated, and then 30 schools have participated. And then compared to the child abuse cases, compared to the same year in 2021, we see a decrease of like 30%. So we have a really good result for the plan in 2021. So we continue this effort and then promote and then implement another plan. And this plan will encourage the third person, and then the third person will become more active to stop the child abuse case. Chair and members, I have already completed my report on the different measures to protect vulnerable witnesses. And all in all, this is to speed up the investigation and to work with stakeholders to strengthen the protection for the victims. We believe that these measures will reduce the misunderstanding of stakeholders like victims on the manner of handling case of the police force. Thank you. Any question or comments? Clement, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for your report on the protection and support for vulnerable victims and sexual violence victims. My question is, for the cases as such, they are rather sensitive. As for the information of victims, do you have special ways to handle all this information so that they can be more protected? About information related to the case, they are all stored in our computer to ensure that the victims, all those information will be protected and they are kept confidential. And then they will be only used appropriately. Only people who are involved have the authority to access all this information. The question is that because most of this case related to the children and MIPs, is there any special or enhanced mechanism to handle the information? As for this question, the capacity rendered and then increase sensitivity when we handle that. We have arranged interviews being done in family-like situation, and then all those interviews are being conducted inside police office, and then we have taken very special arrangement in doing those recorded interviews so that they can feel safer to provide the testimony. Any further questions? Dr. Lee. Yes, Chair. Child abuse has been a long-standing and global problem. For me, I think that if you observe closely, that teachers in the kindergarten and teachers in the primary schools plays a major role. They can have a close observation on the behavior and the situation of the children, and that they can identify the change, and that they can be the first one to report that. And then doctors might come second, because if you don't bring them to the doctors, they cannot identify them. They have to go to school, so that the teachers is in the front line of being the close observer on any indication of a child abuse. So I think that you need to work closer with schools, and then also kindergarten, and then have a closer eye, a look at, and then keep a close observation on the body situation and then behavior, etc. Any response, or just take note of this? Thank you, Dr. Lee. We completely appreciate your concern. Why we bring this up in this meeting with all of you is because the police force have put a lot of emphasis on the child protection, and also on MIPs, and also sexual violence victims, and the protection. And then as for Dr. Lee's comment, then the Law Reform Commission is now studying whether that we should have a bill to see that we need to put some legal responsibility on the caretaker of relevant victims. So we support a lot on these measures. If there is such ordinance, the police will give support to that.
Mr. Chen, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really pleased that the police have set up this task force to deal with the weaknesses or vulnerable, and I like to focus my attention on the children. My other capacity is to deal with the students, ranging from primary students through to higher level students. We are very concerned about this, in particular in light of the children residential home incident. We are particularly concerned about the well-being of children. Of course, we cannot really say for certain where these incidents might happen. There is no telling where they will happen, but we would install a lot more CCTV to guard against these kind of happening. Perhaps the police might wish to have more liaison with these organizations. We are in a bit of a bind here. We do have these CCTVs, but how many CCTV lenses should we have? Now these people, these children are living there, they're residing there, and people don't really want to have too many surveillance cameras around them. On the other hand, if there is anything untoward happen, the police would get to the footages. So where do we draw the line there? We rely very much on the self-discipline on the part of the practitioners, and they should manage the places as best they can. But unfortunately, last year and this year indeed, we've seen some problems in some of the organizations in Hong Kong. And it's more like a collective situation. Now you mentioned some figures. We're not talking about some individual carers who are behaving inappropriately, and it's more like a collective kind of behavior. Now we have come to this situation So we need to have the self-discipline and better management on the part of the NGOs, and we also need to have some external supervision. We need to have inspection and supervision on a regular basis to remind the frontline people of their duties. And the police have done really a marvelous job here, because the NGOs and the frontline practitioners will be given an opportunity to be reminded of what they're supposed to do. Now, I wouldn't use the word privacy too much, but certainly there is an element of privacy there. How do we protect and safeguard the privacy of the residents there? And I look forward to more advice from the police. Thank you. Senator Zhang and Helen and Mabel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chen. I'm grateful to your support for the police. Indeed, the CRH incident has aroused a lot of public concerns. Now, we certainly can derive some lessons from these incidents. It has to do with the professional ethics. You may say that technology might help, and there is always room for that. I will certainly follow up the matter with the relevant divisions to see how best we can liaise with the NGOs in order to strike a proper balance. Now, we have to get the balance right. This is important as to whether there should be more in the way of supervision. We may need to have a regular liaison to identify areas where the police can render assistance. Certainly we will follow up on this. Thank you. Helen, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 3 points. First of all, Dr. Lee has got a point. The teachers will play a significant role. The Education Bureau does have the administrative guidelines. If teachers suspect anything bad, they should make a report. My alma mater, I will certainly abide by these, but the parents would be none too pleased that you are reporting to the SWD, or in some cases for serious ones, you report to the police. We do have the guidelines. Whether the school would be prepared to do it and how they can face the parents' reaction. And in some cases, the teachers might be on the receiving end of criticism. But how are we going to protect the children? And we do have the social welfare cases, even in my alma mater. Now, there may be some family problems for some children. We have to observe all the injuries inflicted upon them, and we should file a report. I think recently there is gratuitous violence and sex scenes in the movies. Now, we used to have the Broadcasting Authority. I'm not sure how they're called now. It used to be called Teller, and I think they have to play a role there. Even for the Miss Hong Kong pageant, they're so scantily dressed, or it's okay for them to be scantily dressed. But when they are interviewed, they're facing Eric Tsang and in the bikini, and they're answering questions in an air-conditioned, freezing cold room. They're facing Eric Tsang, and I think I'm not sure how what it's called now. I think the teller should strengthen the regulation there, and also the parents should have the obligation. they should not just leave the responsibility to the social welfare department. The parents should also bear the responsibility. Thank you. Oh, we don't necessarily need a response. Now, after Helen, I think let's hear from Mabel and then Daniel. Thank you, Superintendent Mickey Wu, for the presentation. I think the presentation was really fantastic. In particular, the publicity and education for the protection of children. I feel that cases of child abuse seem to be rising in numbers. Now, for the mentally incapacitated persons, it will be hard for them to articulate their point of view, and sometimes it's hard for the family members to give them the support that they need and help with the investigations. Publicity and education would be of paramount importance if more assistance were to be given to them. I can see that there are many cases in which people may not be prepared to come forward and call the police. So I do think that you need to mull over these issues to make people feel at ease about getting in touch with the police about these incidents. And that would, in turn, assist the police investigation and get all the due process completed and penalize and bring to justice all the perpetrators. I really hope that you will redouble your efforts there. All right, Daniel. Sylvia, yes. Thank you. And then Sylvia. I have to wear my other hat. I'd like to say very simply that for child abuse cases, my understanding is that there can be two perspectives with regard to the NGOs. The first one is the school and kindergarten. This is more straightforward. The children go home every single day, and there is a bit of a break, and the parents find it easier to spot irregularities. But the other category is NGOs like the CRH, the Children Residential Home, and they are residing in these NGOs themselves. And in Hong Kong, indeed, there are many NGOs that accommodating these children. And there are children who are assigned with the parents or the guardians who are living with the children 24/7. For these residential children, we should give them a different treatment. I think the police should somehow alert the frontline people, because they are residing in these families 24 hours a day. And who's going to find out what's happening under the roof within the four walls of these accommodation? And they are staying together for such a long length of time. I think we have to look at these two different categories. Now, for these residential care homes, the police, or indeed the social welfare department should devote more attention and alert the practitioners, the frontline people, to all the potential danger. When in Hong Kong, for children in these kind of accommodation, the carers are not really experienced people. In many cases, they're inexperienced because in Hong Kong we lack people with the right level of experience or who have undergone really intensive training about what they're supposed to do. And there is a lack of these experience and expertise, and that would contribute to the undesirable quality of service. Maybe some children are hyper active and they may be getting into trouble. And this may not be the police issue alone, but in some cases, police can offer assistance to minimize the occurrence of this nature. Thank you, Sylvia. I think we are a bit tight with our time, and we have overrun it a little bit, Sylvia. And then please, I wish to make a response there. Very briefly.
I just want to know more. According to my knowledge, for this vulnerable weakness, there are appropriate handling mechanism by the police, and once they report the case, and they will go to court, and etc. What I would like to know is that after the case is being reported, is there any measures that you can protect the victims? For instance, like that the kid is being assaulted, and then the victims report the case. Is there any guideline by the police or any particular mechanisms or procedures that the police can assure the victims that once that the case is reported, they will be protected? And then I know that maybe I could be protected in the court, but I think that what happened in the process, that's something that people might want to know more. Well, please, the SP Superintendent Wu, yeah. Yeah, you're completely correct. Well, according to our investigation and understanding, we don't we dealt with not only actually the case. We need to go to and then also to work with the social welfare department to have a joint investigation, and then that include the interview and also to try to arrange necessary measures to protect their safety. And as you mentioned, if we assess that the children no longer is fit to stay in the original home, we will arrange another facilities to put him there or put her there. So that each one of this case will have a special multidisciplinary task force to handle it. The police, the social welfare department, and also some psychiatrists will also be a member of this task force. According to different findings of this case, we will discuss what is the most appropriate arrangement for the victim. So starting from the investigation and then to the court, that we will be working together with different related institutions and then the specialists. I would like to take a few minutes to respond. Thank you. Thanks to police for your effort. And we know that the traditional crimes, including like robbery, and then also the telephone scams, and then the victims suffered, they lost their money, etc., and then they lost their property. But for the mentally incapacitated persons, MIPs, and also the vulnerable groups that is not necessarily the children. It also include the aged. And then there are some even quite abled person, the PCSD, they suffer from PCSD, so they suffer from a lot of traumatic experience, and then it could last for a long period of time. So that they all suffer from a lot of trauma. I think that the police has a really important task, and then that involve a lot of the issues like the caretakers, and that we cannot actually not taking care of all those related aspects. And then the police need to consider that that the school, in fact, need to take responsibility, and the parents as well. The teachers, of course, we would notice that the changes of us, maybe abused kids. But in the family setting, that the family and including the neighbors could also be more vigilant. And then I think that we really need to promote that. We should be more caring, and then that these are our children, this is our elderly, these are our MIPs, they are all the people that we need to take care of. So we need to build up this culture. So, and I think that I think that we need to speak out. This is not that we are nosy about it, but we think that this is very important. I'll be quite quick. Now, in the past, we have the sexual abuse of our family, the violence, and NIP cases. In the past, each of these cases, CAPO and us will seek places that we can improve, like training, like cross departmental the collaboration. So this is the one whole comprehensive review. At our SQII have also looked into the different the area, and then SP has provided a more comprehensive review, and I think that we need to applause for that. And then SP Wu also says that with this enhancement, that the number of complaints has significantly reduced. And in fact, that with the improvement of SQII, that we also see the similar kind of reduction of complaint cases. And I hope that we can actually see a reverse of the increase. So with the last 2 minutes, any more questions? Mr. Chen, I would like to look at the question from another perspective. You mentioned about the 170 member team, and what is this number in proportion to the number of cases? And then, in the future, if we see a significant increase of cases, and will you also proportionally the increase in number of the support team? Yes. Well, in our we are still doing the recruitment. When we talk about the proportion, and I would like to quote some the figures. In the 2021, child abuse case is 1,230 cases. We have 170 staff. That means that for one staff, we need to do he or she need to do 8 to 10 interviews. We see the increase in this case, in this kind of cases. So we are actively enhancing the recruitment process to handle all the changing situation. if there's no further questions, let's go to item 3, matters for information. The first one is CAPO's monthly statistics. The second is about statistics related to FOO, and these are complaints arising from FOO-related POEs. And the third is CAPO's criminal and disciplinary checklists. So please, police representative, can you walk us through this? The chair and members, in the first 8 months of 2022, we have 763 the reportable complaints, and it has a decrease of 18.4%. And compared to the 2020, there is an increase an increase of 2.1%. And then there are complaints on expression of dissatisfaction. There is a significant increase of 1 case compared to 2021. Then the most of those reportable complaints are minor complaints, including neglect of duty, and then offensive languages, and then it is composed of 90% of the total complaints. And then you can see that the yellow part is the misconduct. There is 280 cases, and the blue part is offensive language, and then there's 1.8%, and the rest is the gray part is the assault, 38%, and the fabrication of evidence is 0.3%, 2 cases. The first 8 months in the 2022 compared to 2021, there's 419 cases of the neglect of duty. Misconduct is 281. There's a decrease. Assault is 38, and then the decrease of 10 cases. 14 on offensive language, and neglect of duty is 7 with 7 cases less. And threat and also fabrication of evidence are relatively low. And the approved the complaints on in the 8 months. You can see that the green part is 347 the withdrawn cases, and the yellow is non-pursuable cases, 276, comprising of 30.6%, and then the IR is 107 cases, 11.9%. The blue part is without finding fault is 68 cases. Unsubstantiated is 43 cases, and the white part is the false information, and it's 16 cases. Substantiated and substantiated without report, altogether 50 cases, like 5.5%. This the report for the first 8 months of this year. Thank you. Have you already finished? Yes. Any questions or comments you want to make? Okay. Okay, shall we move on to FOO cases, Chair and members, related to the FOO-related POEs. I will not repeat the number of case complaints, and then the state that 618 cases for the reportable complaints, and then 90% has been returned to IPCC, and then 92% has been approved by IPCC, and the 30 cases are still in the judiciary process. So only 2 cases just complete the judiciary procedure, and then last week we have already submitted to IPCC. So these are the reports. So most are still under judiciary situation. So any questions and any comments? If not, then we move on to CAPO's criminal and disciplinary checklist. Anyone? Jill? For the disciplinary checklist and progress, we have already circulated with the table. Any questions and any comments? If not, then we move on to any other business. There is no any other business. So the joint meeting open session will end here. The next meeting will be on the 20th of December. Good luck, good health, and hope that we'll return to normal at that time. Thank you.
Friends of the media, at the joint meeting, the IPCC listened to the police presentation on the protection and support of vulnerable witnesses. The IPCC is pleased to see that in terms of child abuse and MIP, mentally incapacitated persons, we're pleased to see that the police have strengthened the training of the personnel, and also to strengthen the cooperation with the NGOs, and to enhance publicity and education and adopt a multi-pronged approach to protect the vulnerable witnesses. In relation of MIT and family violence, the IPCC did put forward some SQII's, service quality improvement initiatives. In relation to family violence, the police should improve the guidelines and strengthen the training. There should be better sensitivity on the part of the frontline officers, in particular in relation to cases of domestic violence. If the parents involved are arrested, and the police should pay attention to the care of the children. You probably remember that the SQIIs put forward by the IPCC have fostered the cooperation between various sectors, like the MIP, together with the medical sector, and also the guidelines, the code of practice for the handling of MIPs, for quick reference by the police officers, for them to identify the MIPs more easily and to enhance the quality of service. We are pleased to see that the police have been proactively responding to the SQIIs. In terms of the complaint numbers over the past decade, the number has been on the decline. We believe that with a better quality of service, there would be good confidence in the police on the part of the members of the public. For the complaint system to be effective, we need to have the cooperation of the complainants. So we need to have all the relevant information for the police to conduct investigation, and the IPCC would scrutinize the investigation report. Only then will we make sure that every complaint cases will be handled properly, and to make sure the public resources will be used properly. In the new bulletin, the theme is about the responsibility and duty of the complainant, and the cooperation of the complainant would make a whole lot of difference. This would enable the investigation to be conducted in a way that will not be delayed, and to make sure that the resources will not be wasted. there are cases of non-pursuable cases and withdrawal cases. They take up 50% of the cases. Now, for false complaints is increased from 36 to 62 this year, or 70% year on year, and this is a cause for concern. Myself and my members and SG reiterated on different occasions that lodging a complaint is a serious matter, and lodging a complaint against law enforcement agencies is a solemn business. The police and the IPCC would seriously and conscientiously deal with every single complaint. Likewise, we hope that the complainant would also adopt the same attitude in relation to the complaints. We must bear in mind that the complainants do enjoy the right to lodge a complaint as part of the civic right. They also have the civic duty. They should adopt a sincere attitude and lodge a proper complaint. And they should leave traceable or contactable details and cooperate with the police. And third, they should provide accurate and faithful or truthful information regarding the complaints, and to tie in with the investigation. I'd like to hand you over to Clement, Chairman of the Publicity and Community Relations Committee, who will be briefing you on the bulletin, and then Daniel will be briefing you on the numbers regarding the POO-related POEs, and also the progress of the scrutiny. Thank you. Friends of the media, like the Chair said a moment ago, we have this two-tier complaint system. We need to have the cooperation and of the members of the public. In 21-22, 767 non-pursuable cases were registered. 90% of them, even though CAPO has tried to contact the complainant never turned up to assist in the investigation. This is an undesirable situation. Not only will this waste the resources in handling the complaints, the police officers being complained against will also be given a raw deal. I'd like to share with you a couple of cases. First, it has to do with the delivery, the take-out food. I'm sure that during COVID you would use these apps to order deliveries. Now, the complainant orders delivery. Upon payment, no food was delivered. And the complainant felt cheated and he rang 999 for assistance. And he asked the police to send for officers to conduct investigation. The officer explained the whole situation to him, and the incident is not of an urgent nature, and he was advised to get in touch with the service provider or the restaurant for assistance. The complainant insisted that he was hungry and this was a matter of urgency, and the police didn't send any officers to investigate, and this is a neglect of duty in his view. And the complainant never responded to any follow-up action from CAPO. We listened to the conversation on the 999 phone call. The police have already explained clearly the reason why no officers were sent to the scene, and it was an appropriate course of action, and there was no fault on the part of the police officer. In this particular incident, it is very much a consumer dispute, and the complainant can lodge a complaint with the consumer organization or the service provider. And also, just because he was hungry, he asked for the police to come along and investigate. I think this is a case of an abuse of 999 and also the complaint system. The IPCC noted that a lot of the complainants would lodge complaints about frivolous matters, and and they would disappear without a trace, and this is a gross act of irresponsibility. And these are complaints of a minor nature, and the IPCC also noticed that some of the cases involve the legal proceedings, and they would use this as a defense. Now, when someone is convicted, they would refuse to cooperate with CAPO, and the cases would become unpursuable. In order to categorize these cases properly, CAPO will have to devote a lot of resources to go over the court documents and to analyze the evidence. And this added to a lot of complexity to the investigation. Now, when the investigation report comes to the IPCC, we still have to go over a lot of documents and evidence to ascertain whether the categorization on the part of CAPO is appropriate. And this prevented the appropriate use of resources. This is a cause for concern. And in case number 3 in the bulletin, the complainant complained against the police framing someone for possessing dangerous drugs. When the case went to court, the complainant admitted the offense and agreed that the dangerous drug was found in his rucksack. But after the case, the CAPO contacted the person, and the person never appeared again. And this is a case of unpursuable case. Now, the admission of the crime shows that the CAPO agree with the perspective, and this is a warning letter has been issued to the complainant. Now, for these false complaints, IPCC urges the police to pay particular attention to the evidence to see whether the complainant is making false complaints, and they should instigate prosecution against these complainants to make sure that there will not be any malicious complaints. We iterate that to provide false information to the police is a criminal act. CAPO will seek the DOJ's advice, and it is likely that the complainant will be prosecuted. Now, the case that I refer to can be clearly categorized, but in some cases, even CAPO and IPCC endeavor to do so to ascertain the matter, but because the complainant doesn't want to cooperate, and the investigation would not be pursuable in the end. In the bulletin case number 5, from the complaint to the review procedure, the complainant never turned up, and during the review process, the complainant claimed that there was new evidence that he could adduce, and he said he would be prepared to record the evidence, but eventually he changed his mind and asked CAPO not to bother him again.
So it's been a lot of effort and resources in investigating the time, but because of the false information provided by the complainant, then everything is wasted. As I mentioned before, that CAPO and IPCC has been taking very careful steps and to address every one of those complaints. But civilians also need to have their responsibility. First of all, they need to be honest and to put forward proper their complaint. Secondly is to leave an effective contact. And the third is to provide authentic and correct information to illustrate the cases. IPCC, they will continue to support and uphold the right and also the responsibility of all complainants, and then via different channels like school visits, publicity and media, and then social media, etc., to publicize and then to educate the public on the importance of quality of service on the police force. Thank you, Chair. Right now, I would like to share with you the situation related to FFOO and the POEs until the end of August. There are altogether the 600 some reportable complaints, and then there is 1,100 complaints. And there are the NC 131, and then of the X 618 RC, and 70% are minor allegations that include three major categories: misconduct. There are the 296 complaints. Is like 27% of the total complaint. The neglect of duty, the number of cases are 264. The percentage is 24%. The third category is impolite. The number is 129, and the percentage is 12%. With RC, serious allegation, 384, 48, 30%. There are two major categories. One is abuse of authority, is 176. 175. Assault is 146. It's like 12% of the total cases. When we look into those complaints, IPCC member and observers have made 1,400 some observations, like collecting evidence and meeting the complainants, etc. And then the attendance rate is 100%. And until the end of August, we have the reports. 95% of the RCs, and then the remaining 32 cases are still in the adjudication. That means they are still in the legal procedure. So most of them belong to that kind of categories. That most of you would like to know more about that 500 something report. We have already approved 97% of all the investigation. That includes 187 are fully investigated. I will go into more detail about the 187 cases. So 237 are non-pursuable, and I would also give more details about those cases. Withdrawal, there is 132 cases. Informal resolution, it's 10. So altogether, it's 566 cases. As I said, 187 fully investigated. That not all of them are requested by the complainants. Only 114 complainants have made that request. The others well, include cases where the complainant have not can provide any well, assistance. They should be categorized as unpursuable cases. But as we find that there are evidence that will support the investigation. So among them, of the 46 of these cases, that the complainant have provide no support and assistance whatsoever. And all these are taken voluntarily by us. And then some have withdrawn their cases. But CAPO and us see that, well, with the existing evidence that we can substantiate the judgment. So 114 is requested by the complainant for fully investigation, but the 27, the complainant has requested withdrawal of the cases, but they still fully be investigated. 237 are unpursuable. Among that, the 200, the complainant have not provided any assistance, as just mentioned in our newsletter, that the complainant had not come forth to give us assistance in the investigation. So there are altogether 200 of these cases. As if you look further into the statistics, that you would know that we have 240 something of these cases, and then but for MP there are 200, and then there are 37 that the complainants step forth, but the information cannot substantiate the capacity of the police, so they have been classified as non-pursuable. You might also want to know, among the 87 cases, that most of them, the 292 allegations altogether, and then substantiated allegation amounts to 27, including the 8 is neglect of duty, 8 neglect of duty, 5 misconduct, 3 cases is the abuse of authority, 6 is impolite, 5 offensive language, unsubstantiated is 1, and that is being classified as neglect of duty. It should be classified as substantiated other than reported, and that it's not fully substantiated. I would like to repeat it. Not fully substantiated on a complaint on misconduct, but substantiated other than reported. That is not true. But for that, there are 7 cases. 5 are the neglect of duty, 2 misconduct. Yeah? That means the 27 are substantiated, and then 2 are not fully substantiated, and then the 2 are without the substantiated. Note fault, 157, and then the false is 10. So you might want to know that since last time, because every time we will share with you the cases, and particularly the cases where the frontline officers do not perform well. But for non-pursuable cases, I've already given you the 237 cases, and I just want to share with you that there are a very special complainant. That complainant that in the 2020, from August to October, he made 10 complaints. within those months. But he never come forth. And then of the 10, 9 are not pursuable. The remaining one has a kind of record and video record on the full procedure, but we find no fault with the police officer. Well, I'd emphasize the rights and responsibilities of the complainant. I'm not saying that all of the complainants are the same, but for this particular one, that this one is very irresponsible because within 2 months he made 10 complaints, but he never come forth on the 9th. Only the last one, there is a video recording on that, but with that video recording, we found that there's no fault with the frontline officer. And for SOTR, substantiated and not fully substantiated altogether, there are a total of 35 complaints, 32 cases with 35 allegations. That means that there are 3 more cases with 4 allegations. The first one is about in the 2019 September, the complainant was arrested by the police, suspected of participating in riots because we find the kind of baton and other the equipments. And then the police also find the car key and then ask him where is the car, and he said it's somewhere. And then our frontline officer tried to find the car, find the vehicle, and then the suspect was being sent to the police station. A senior police officer instruct the frontline officer that well, you should go and find the car and then try to search the car, but that search has not been done with the weakness and presence of the complainant. So this is being classified as abuse of authority. The senior officer warned and the verbal warning of the frontline officer. And then this is a new case for this term. And the second case happened early 2020. There's a reporter or friend from the media, and he was being searched at Admiralty. At that particular time, that a frontline officer used the ID card to block the camera of the reporter, and then this being classified as misconduct, and then the IPCC will issue a warning, but this will not be kept in the book. But when the media person left the venue, he moved to another location, wanting to film. And other women who was being searched by the police at that time, that a police officer advised him not to film the situation, and then he was asked to show his ID, and the police officer kept the mobile of that journalist. To IPCC find that this is not appropriate, and so that this is being substantiated on the allegation of misconduct.
The third case was towards the end of 2019. There was a reporter who was filming a protester being arrested. and a police officer asked him to step back a little bit, and he should not stand there because of the tense situation. When he was filming, he saw a number of frontline officers who didn't show any call sign on their shoulders and lodged a complaint. And we reviewed all the footages, and it was found to be substantiated, and it was a case of NOD. Now that's the third case. Now that's the fourth allegation in the third case. Now you might be interested to know, as of now, we have 618 cases arising from the POO event. We have endorsed 500 or so cases, and how many frontline officers were subject to disciplinary action. Let me give you some numbers. In terms of ranking, 14 have been given advisory. One was given a verbal warning, 14 plus 1. In terms of Sergeant, 9 were given verbal warning. Station Sergeant, 6 were given verbal warning, and 6 verbal advisory, 1 verbal warning. Senior Inspector, 3 verbal advisory, and 3 brigades were given verbal advisories. And they were advised them to do a better job in future. And so much I have to share with you in terms of statistics. Please raise your hands if you have any questions. Commercial radio reporter was hit with a round that the IPCC has reviewed this for some time, and is proved to be unsubstantiated. And do you find these to be credible? There are so many voices outside. Are you going to be reviewing this particular case? That the then commissioner did warn the officer. Did you take this into account? And in terms of child abuse cases, have there been any complaint against the police? Right, let me address your question. I know you are very concerned about this case. Under the mechanism, the complainant can lodge an application for a review within 30 days, so I'm not going to go into detail about this particular case, except to say that I have reviewed the footages repeatedly. The IPCC is acting on evidence basis. We would not take into account any subjective perception. We would work on the basis of evidence. I have seen the footage myself, and I can tell you that with every single case, we would be fair and just. As I said, the complainant can lodge an application for a review, and I'm going to go into detail about this based on this. As to the warning given by the Commissioner, now, of course, the Commissioner has the right to reprimand the officers, but we are aware of the reprimand. We're also aware of why the reprimand was issued. And the reprimand has got nothing to do with that particular case. As to the details, I'm not at liberty to disclose all the details because this is a police decision. We did ask for the details in connection with the reprimand, and I can tell you that the reprimand has got nothing to do with that particular case. And child abuse, any complaint against the police. During the open session, I said already that previously we did receive complaints regarding domestic violence, about the investigation teams handling of the domestic violence cases, and there is room for improvement. Now, for these cases, we did discuss with the CAPO as to how they can do better. So we have issued them with the SQII, the Service Quality Improvement Initiatives, with a view to making them do the job better, and they are happy to cooperate. The CAPO has implemented all the improvement measures. In recent times, we haven't seen any particular complaints in this regard. Now, with SQII, the key thing is whether they are effective. Now, whether they are effective, we can ascertain the effectiveness on the basis of the number of complaints arising from this. We haven't seen an increase. 3 questions, if I may. Now, about the commercial radio reporter case, if the person lodges a complaint, how are you going to follow up on this? Now, Mr. Chris Tang has said that a reprimand doesn't mean that the officer is in the wrong. There are so many cases in which there were verbal warning or reprimands as a means to hold them responsible. Do you think that this is a fair way of disciplining the officers? Also, the cable TV reporter, the case was unpursuable because the identity of the police officer could not be ascertained, and it was said that the police officer didn't try to bump into the reporter intentionally. Is the IPCC aware of the identity of the police officer? And there are some informed sources that said that the CAPO has passed over the case to the IPCC, but there was no reason given for not entertaining the case. Is this true? If this is true, why was the decision made like this? And also, there are many cases involving news reporters in the FOO incidents. How many cases were involved from the media, and how many are substantiated, and how many are not pursuable, and how many are unsubstantiated? And how, do you feel that this is a desirable situation where you have fired off a whole barrage of questions? I try to remember your question. Please give me a shout if I forget some of them. Under the mechanism, it's not for us to look at what and not to look at what evidence. We do have the mechanism. The CAPO would conduct the investigation first based on the allegations. And for each and every allegation, they will conduct an investigation. And once they're done with the investigation, they will come to a conclusion. And thereafter, a report will be submitted to us. And then the IPCC will look at the conclusion and evidence in connection with the allegations. And then we will decide whether we endorse the investigation report. And that addressed your question. So in terms of Commissioner's reprimand, if that doesn't fall within the complaint mechanism, it's got nothing to do with us. So our duty is to function within the context of complaints. If there are complaints, the CAPO will conduct the investigation. The report will be submitted to us for scrutiny. That's in answer to your question. Your other case, can you be more specific about that case? I'm not sure about the details. Anti-riot police pushed the reporter over, and it was captured on camera. It was said the CAPO did submit the case to the IPCC, but for no reason given, the case was not entertained. I'd like to know why. I don't have any recollection of this case. Now, all the complaints will have to be registered, And the cases would be registered under the mechanism, and all the complaints would have to be accounted for, and the CAPO will, in accordance with the IPCC ordinance, inform the complainant of the findings, and the result is not a question of us choosing to look at the cases or choosing not to look at the cases. And you cited these cases, you don't have the number of the complaint, and I think you have to give us further information for us to have a look to see whether that really happened and why, if it did. For each and every case, I will look at them, and I can assure you that I would look at every single case. I would take the final decision before submitting to the chairman and the members for endorsement. So I don't quite remember the case that you referred to. Perhaps you might wish to give me more information for follow-up. What's the other questions? During the FOO period, how many cases involve the media and how many are unsubstantiated, and how do you view these kind of cases? Right, let me give you some stats. I think you are really struggling to write down the numbers. 618 cases, 22% were lodged by the media workers, 138 out of 618, 138 out of 618. Now there is a breakdown there. There are three major categories. The first one is 27 came from one media organization, 57 came from another media organization on behalf of the colleagues or whatever, and there are 23 from another organization. 27, 57, and 23 have come from three different media organizations, and they're lodging complaints. 31 came from individual practitioners. As of now, we have endorsed 134, involving 192 allegations. 138 involved 206 allegations, 138 cases, 206 allegations. We have endorsed 134 or 192 allegations. The categories: unsubstantiated 12, 3 misconduct, 3 NOD, 6 impoliteness, SOTR, there is one allegation. SOTR, one allegation. Unsubstantiated, 22 allegations. No fault, 37 allegations. Not pursuable and withdrawn, 120 allegations. I'm going to share with you further details. 192 allegations altogether. If you recall, a couple of times ago, a couple of meetings ago, in particular the Vice Chair, I also referred to this. CAPO, as I said, there are 3 media organizations. The CAPO got in touch with these organizations in the hope of soliciting the information about the complainants.
And asked them to contact CAPO to provide necessary information. But unfortunately, after series of this contact, we even contacted the legal representative of the media organization. and so that the complainant can provide the information to CAPO. And it takes a long time, months, but eventually and finally, even that they are represented by the organization to make this complaint, the complainant never come forth to give the information personally. So as I just said, and then that whatever capacity they are, and then if they want to make a complaint, we really hope them that they can come forth and tell us the case. And then so that justice could be done. Otherwise, the allegation is not fair to our frontline officers. Coupled has a lot of cases that could not actually contact the complainant to get the necessary information. I just want to add that the CAPO and is 200412. That's the number of the case. We cannot give you the information relating to this case, but maybe later. And then your number is not our number. This is the number of CAPO. So we'll follow that up, but we can only provide you the follow-up later on. From the commercial radio, just now you mentioned that some the police officers receive reprimand and also instruction. So we just want to know what all this means. Well, if they are being reprimanded, will they receive disciplinary action, and then will they still perform duty in the front line? And there are the 273 cases non-consumable. Some of them is because the capacity of the complainant could not be identified. And there are also cases about the Pioneer Center, and the journalist has filmed, and then that the police cannot show his card and to prove his identity. Is there any contradiction in this case? And then just because they cannot find the identified that a police officer, and then you cannot establish the complaint. You have asked a long question. I hope that I could remember all. Since the case, as I mentioned before, is alleging the police have not identified his number, so this is being classified as NOD, and then so the whole team is being reprimanded, and then that instruction is instruction. The instruction is saying that you are not doing well. You need to improve. This is the content of the instruction, and then about the reprimand, and this is the administrative measure adopted by the police force, and I cannot give you further information on that. And then what happened after the reprimand was being carried out? It is not something included in the complaint mechanism, so I also cannot provide further information on this regard. Well, what other question you're asking? Is it fair to the complainant? Well, of course, if we cannot find the alleged, this is the fact. But very often, we need to look into the case itself. As I shared with you just now, that the 273 are not pursuable. 37 belongs to the cases where we cannot identify the police officer being complained. Well, it doesn't mean that the responsibility lies with the police officer. Why? It's because there are many reasons for not being able to identify the identity of the police. Well, that one of them says that the complainant says that it all happened in the flash of a second, and then he consider that the police officer do not perform appropriately. So this is why he cannot provide the necessary information regarding the identity of the police officer. He can only like that he's wearing a green uniform, etc. And in some cases that he mentioned a certain number, but we find afterwards that some of those police officers were not performing duty at that particular time, at that particular place. And then some provide video recordings. They are quite poor quality, etc. But well, I could not I say that this is very common. Well, what I mean is that the police officers being arrested is very common in these cases. Well, this is the situation is not satisfactory. Well, like that, the number is not shown in the uniform. So the whole team was being instructed by the CAPO, and then telling them that they need to identify themselves in the uniform.
The first question, I want to ask a little bit about the commercial radio incident. And you said that we would want to clarify exactly how much evidence is needed for a complaint to be substantiated by the IPCC or police. As previous other journalists have said, there are videos involved, and you have seen the videos involved. What kind of evidence are we looking for to have a substantiated complaint? And also, I want to ask a little bit about the decrease in the amount of complaints from January to August. There's an 18.4 decrease in the complaints that were received in the first month of August compared to last year. What do you think is the cause of that? What is the reason behind it? And also, I'd like to ask a bit more about the complainants not showing up or not assisting. Would you have any further figures on, overall how many complainants have not assisted in the investigations, and also what is the reason behind the complainants not perhaps assisting with the investigation or not being able to identify by the IPCC? Thank you.
Right, thank you for your questions. I'll answer the second and third, and the first one I'll leave to our SG, Mr. Mui. All right, regarding the decrease in figures. Now, figures do not stay constant, as we all know. That is the fact in life. And unless it is manually manipulated, it is not possible for figures to remain constant. That goes for the weather, for the stock market, for everything. Okay? Now, we know that we are living in rather unusual times, and I hope that it does not last forever, which is COVID. So life came to some kind of standstill at various points in the last 2.5 years, as we all know, right? In the past 8 months, we've been through a number of waves in COVID that limited activities to a large extent, which is very unfortunate, but that's a different discussion, right? It was not possible to go out for dinner, and head count is limited, and so on. Schools were closed during different times of the year, so on and so forth, and people are used to working at home. So activities have gone down. And you can imagine what happens after that, all right? So interaction became limited. And if people don't go out as often, there is less interaction. So incidents are fewer, understandably, all right? And at worst times in the past 2.5 years, we've seen supermarkets running out of food, running out of vegetables, running out of rice, toilet paper, you name it. We had difficulties in that regard. So those were very difficult times and different times, and one cannot take it as a standard, at least I hope. Now, the next thing is, with a decrease in cases, one can imagine what has been happening, because we're living in very comfortable times. Now we have smart everything. Everyone almost has a smartphone in hand, all right? And if you saw what I said well, you see, in these times, as a result of technology, we have the benefit of recording, all right? There is, therefore, in that sense, less possibility for misunderstanding, for different accounts of things, because a lot is recorded, all right? Now, an example I can give you is that many years ago, all right, when there were not as many camera recordings in the roads, all right? Then when people were ticketed for careless driving, for running red lights, it was more common for cases to be fought as to whether or not certain things happened. Now, with so much recording, with so much data, digital things being available, these things are not argued as much, so you have fewer cases being contested, all right? That is not unusual. Okay, so I believe I've dealt with that one. And then your next question, the third question was regarding not pursuable cases, right? Could you please repeat that for me?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a bit more about the non-pursuable cases where the complainants are not assisting, and that's something you've mentioned quite repeatedly throughout
Yes.
the press conference. I just want to ask, do you have any reasons behind why the complainants are not assisting with the IPCC, sorry, the CAPO or the IPCC investigations?
Right, thank you. That's a very good question to which I would like an answer, but I can't give you the answer because the answers will have to come from the complainants themselves. I don't know why people have been lodging complaints, but do not follow up. Some people refuse to even give their names, right? And many don't give their contact information, and some refuse to be cooperative. I don't understand, and I would urge people to please cooperate. We will take every case seriously. We will work hard. We will independently and honestly deal with each case, but we cannot do so when we don't know who is complaining, who that person is, how that person can be contacted. There is no forthcoming information, so basically it cannot be pursuable. And if it were pursued, you'd be very surprised. You'd be asking questions as to how it was possible for that to be pursued and concluded. Thank you. So I would urge everyone to please, when they have any complaint to lodge, to please follow up and cooperate. Thank you. And regarding your first question, that's a commercial radio, I'll leave to our Secretary General. Thank you very much.
May I supplement 2 points as to the answer to your second part of your question and the third part of your question. Now, I think Chairman and I always say on different occasions that other than to deal with the grievances of a complainant, a complaint system has to look at the complaints, to look at ways how to reduce the complaint, and find ways that the police can enhance their police service. And that's what I always call it, this is the SQII. I've been talking about this for many times. So I believe that with the implementation of the SQII, with the improvement of police quality of service, that would reduce complaints. If you look at the figures in the past 10 years, the number of complaints gradually decreased from 4,000 in 2009 to recently about 1,500 to 1,700 complaints each year. Whereas at the same time, the number of SQI we put forward to the police, and they really look at it, and then they implement it, increase at the same time, with a total of over like 200 in the past 10 years. So that is one of the reasons I strongly believe that contribute to the decrease in the number of complaints recently. Okay, as to why the complainant in those NP cases do not come forward to provide details of the complaint. As Chairman said, we can't say on behalf of the complainants, but if you look at the newsletter, this issue newsletter, as a PCC Chairman, share with you all the cases, the first cases. What happened to the first cases? What happened to the first case? The first case was so trivial. I don't think even a normal person will lodge that complaint. He complained, he called 999 because the food was not delivered to his home. And he insisted an officer be sent to his home because he was so hungry. And then after he lodged a complaint, when CAPO officer tried to contact him, he became out of reach. So that tells you something. And as to the two cases involving court, those defendants tried to make use of the complaint as one of the defense in a court case. After either they were acquitted or they were convicted, they become out of reach again. So you can see that. And then you look at the last two cases, especially case number 4. Case number 4 was it involves a very serious allegation of theft of even the $3,000 and then throwing his iPhone, his mobile phone onto the ground, causing it damage. But then during the investigation, CAPO located the CCTV footage, and in the footage, the kind of behavior that he complains against the officers could not be seen. So that at least to give you some kind of clue why some people, I can't say all people in the NP case why they do not come forward. I can't say all, but at least that will tell you why some complainant in those NP cases they will not come forward to make the complaint, to give details. Excuse me. Now back to the first part of your question as to how we could we use the standard of proof is we use the balance of probability. Okay, we don't use the beyond reasonable doubt as in the criminal court. And but as to what evidence we need, first of all, I can't say definitely we need this A, B, C, D, E to give you a definite formula, and then I can substantiate an allegation. It's a matter of we have to look at the allegation, what the complainant is complaining about, and then we have to look at the evidence. When we look at the allegation, we will focus on, I always ask myself, what sort of evidence do I need in order to substantiate this allegation or in order to exonerate the officers being complained against? So it's both sides. It's both sides. So I would have in my mind what sort of information that I need to know for in order to reach a definite finding on that allegation. So I cannot give you a definite answer, but that is the kind of approach that we will use when we look at each complaint, when we look at each allegation. We have to look at the allegation, the particulars of the allegation. We'll have to look at the facts of the case, and then we have to listen to the explanation given by the officers, and we have to look at all the details of the complaint lodged by the complaint, all the facts, and then what the witnesses say, and then what sort of other evidence that we have, such as CCTV recording and like the documentation, police documentation, police record, etc., and etc. So that's how we look at the complaint. I hope I've answered your question.
Our PR chief is mindful of the time, but if I could use 1 or 2 minutes to supplement still what our SCMP colleague has just asked, okay, for this to be complete. Now, regarding the decrease in number of complaints, there can be any number of reasons, but another main reason is perhaps that police officers these days are better educated generally, all right? And that goes for education in Hong Kong. We have so many universities, we have so many graduates every year. So over time, you have much better educated policemen, all right, who are aware of rights of citizens and their own duties, how people should interact. So that's one. And another should be, now Mr. Mui, our SG, has just mentioned SQII, Service Quality Improvement Initiatives. They have all been made aware, and these improvement initiatives are added on time after time. And we, IPCC, we have proposed many of them that have been implemented very well, and we are very glad to see. And we have the likes of Mr. Chan sitting next to me, our PCC chairman. He is very dedicated to promoting on a public basis for public awareness of duties of police, how they are expected to behave, what rights citizens have. So everyone knows the ground rules, and no one is out to break them in this complaint monitoring system. All right, so that's one. And another is that regarding how much evidence, what kind of evidence you need to substantiate a case, all right? Each case, of course, depends on its own facts. This goes for every court case, as we all know. It goes for everything in life, all right? And we cannot comment on individual cases, certainly not too much, because that will involve privacy and certain considerations that are not meant for public consumption or examination in detail, and one can understand that, all right? But people, the society should rest assured that it is a very well-run two-tier system that we have of dealing with police complaints. One is CAPO. And on top of that, there is this overview, this monitoring, this, in fact, auditing done by the IPCC. People here have integrity. They are leaders from society. Sitting next to me is Mr. Clement Chan, a very accomplished professional who is very dedicated to public service also. We have 3 legislative councillors who are deputy chairmen. We have medical professors, we have doctors, lawyers, and people probably know, most of you will know, Mr. Paul Lam left us at the end of June, right, because he had to take up another appointment. So we have many leaders in society that lend their credibility, their time and work in ensuring that cases are dealt with fairly and properly. So one should have confidence in the system. Thank you very much.
Economic Channel. For the 237 FOO cases that are not pursuable, you mentioned the complainants do have the right and duty. And for these 237 cases of non-pursuable cases, will the IPCC be issuing the warning letters? Or will the police be prosecuting people for making false representation? Now, there are 3 cases that substantiated. The first one is a station sergeant. The UUOA case was substantiated, and this is a serious case. Why is it that he was given a verbal warning and there was no DRF entry? Do you think this penalty is too minor without any DRF entry? And also the commercial radio case. According to the reporter, he said that IPCC said there is no sufficient evidence to substantiate the case. Has the IPCC called any police officers to give evidence? The reporter would like the IPCC to explain to look at the use of force by the police. How are we going to respond to this? Right, Mr. Chen can take the first question. Thank you very much for the question. Now the question is whether we would advise the police to take action against the false complaints and the warning letter and so on. In the 3rd case that I cited, I've already explained clearly that in these kind of situations, the complainant said at the beginning that he was framed by the police, and the dangerous drugs was planted in his rucksack. But in the court proceedings, he admitted that the drugs belonged to him, and it was found by the police from his rucksack. And this obviously is a blatant false allegation, and we've asked the police to issue a warning letter to the complainant. That has been done. I'd like to focus on the FOO incident. You mentioned some media organizations that lodged complaint collectively, and they refused to cooperate and offer assistance. I'd like to focus on these kind of cases. Any warning letters issued, any prosecution instigated by the police. Right? If I may supplement the PCC chairman's remarks, whether it is FOO related or FOO unrelated, if there is a situation where there is evidence to prove that you've lodged a complaint which is a misrepresentation of facts, then warning letter might be received. Now, for the 200 or 246 cases, I believe, I can't remember every single one of them. There may be some in which the court has already handed down the judgment, and then we can come to our judgment. So to answer your question, if there are cases that show that there is some false allegation, there will be warning letters. There may be others that didn't have any warning letters. My second question also about the substantiated case that the station sergeant committed UUOA, and there was no DRF entry. Do you think that without the DRF entry, it was too minor or too light a discipline? Well, warning is very serious. It's not a minor discipline. Now, to issue a warning, one with a DRF entry, one without. But it's not the case that there was no record. It's only that there was no DRF entry. It's a matter of police administrative matters. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but a warning represents a very serious matter. Now, for the station sergeant, what has he done? And let's go back to that particular case. Now, he was searching the vehicle, and the person was arrested, and he was convicted in court. I didn't say just now. He was sentenced to put on an 18-month behavior bond. He was not procedurally right when he searched, when he had the vehicle searched. The complainant should be there on hand to witness what happened. And you cannot have the vehicle driven to the police station and searched. It's a matter of procedural issue. Now, in this particular case, we saw that it was a procedural blunder, the warning. It is indeed a very serious matter in itself. There was another question about the commercial radio case. Will IPCC tell us a little bit more the extent of involvement of the IPCC? You saw the footages. Have you summoned any reporters to give evidence? Now, they like to have more explanation about the use of force, and to what extent was the IPCC involved? Well, under the mechanism, we do not conduct the investigation. We will not summon any people to conduct the investigation. This is not what's happening. Under the mechanism, if anybody can assist us, in the case, we would invite them to give the explanation, but this is not part of the investigation. Investigation is a job for the police. Now, the case might be reviewed. I don't really want to go into detail. I think I'll omit one thing. It's not me alone who saw the footages. The chair also a witness or saw the footages. They've seen the footages many times as well. I remember viewing the footages together with the chair. Of course, we would look at all the evidence in connection with the cases and all the guidelines that you have in mind, the police record, all the considerations, and the members would look at the issues from different perspectives. They would argue their case, they would argue their point of view. So, I mean, for a case to be unsubstantiated, it is not a case that it was really dealt with in a simple way. And I can assure you that the chair and the members did go over the footages, and we would look at the issue from a wide variety of perspectives. And we would endorse the findings of the CAPO. If we do not endorse the findings, we'll have to come to the final decision that we agree with.